60 CE marks the moment the ground shook in Britannia, not from an earthquake, but from the collective gasp of a tribe watching their royalty dismantled. The air is thick with the metallic scent of fresh blood and the oppressive silence of a crowd that has just witnessed the unthinkable. You are looking at a woman who was, until moments ago, a protected ally of the greatest empire on earth. Now, she is on her knees, her back flayed open by Roman scourges, the damp soil soaking up royal blood. But the physical pain is secondary. The true horror is happening just feet away where Roman soldiers are seizing her daughters. This is not a chaotic battlefield frenzy. This is a calculated administrative procedure. The soldiers are not drunk on rage. They are bored, efficient, and following orders. They are demonstrating a terrifying truth about the ancient world. That Roman law protects you only until it decides to consume you. This is the moment a mother breaks. Or so the logic goes. This is where the spirit of resistance is supposed to die, crushed under the weight of inevitability. But looking into the eyes of this fallen queen, the soldiers miss the spark that will soon incinerate their cities. They believe they are witnessing the end of a dynasty, but they are actually lighting the fuse for the bloodiest rebellion in the history of Roman Britain. This scene is not a work of fiction, but a dark chapter of history that Roman historians recorded with trembling hands. Before the fires of vengeance consumed London, Rome had already perfected a brutal system for dealing with defiant queens. It was a machine fueled by humiliation, designed to turn powerful women into living warnings. If the dark machinery of the Roman Empire and the grim fates of those who challenge it fascinate you, ensure you are subscribed to this channel for more deep dives into the shadows of history. Let us unravel the tapestry of imperial cruelty. It begins not with a sword, but with a parade. 272 CE sees a different queen in a different part of the world facing the same monstrous realization. The setting is the scorching heat of the East, where the Palmyran Empire has just fallen. You are no longer the ruler of the East. You are Zenobia, the woman who dared to seize Egypt and cut off Rome's grain supply. You declared yourself Augusta, equal to the emperor, but now you are being marched toward a destiny worse than death. The dust of the Syrian desert has been replaced by the cobbled stones of the Via Sacra in Rome. You are the centerpiece of a Roman triumph, the ultimate spectacle of domination. Emperor Aurelian has not killed you because a corpse cannot feel shame. A corpse cannot validate his glory. He needs you alive, breathing and suffering. They have shackled you in chains made of solid gold. The irony is heavy, literally and metaphorically. The gold that once symbolized your vast wealth and independent economy now weighs down your neck, dragging your head low, forcing you to bow even if your spirit refuses to. These fetters are not meant to secure you against escape. You have nowhere to go in the heart of Italy. They are meant to dazzle the mob. The crowd is not a collection of individuals, but a single, roaring beast 100,000 throats. They scream, they point, they jeer. This is the sound of Rome, feeding on the misery of the conquered. For a prisoner of war, this noise is a soundtrack of your erasure. You realize that to Rome, you are no longer a person. You are an object. You are a prop in Aurelian's theater of politics. The concept is chilling in its simplicity. When Rome captures a rival, the captive undergoes a legal alchemy. The moment of surrender strips away citizenship, titles, and rights. You become a nonentity, a creature of the ius gentium, the law of nations, which dictates that the defeated are merely property waiting to be disposed of. Zenobia walks with this knowledge burning in her mind. She knows that many who walk this path do not reach the end. They vanish into the dark, wet dungeons beneath the Capitoline Hill, never to be seen again. The uncertainty is the primary weapon. Will she be strangled, beheaded, starved, or forced to live on as a pet of the state? She keeps walking, struggling under the crushing weight of the gold, her jewels cutting into her skin, her royal robes now a costume for the mob's amusement. She understands that her composure is her only remaining weapon. If she weeps, Rome wins. If she collapses, Rome wins. So she walks. To understand the terror of this walk, one must understand the anatomy of a Roman triumph. It was not merely a parade. It was a religious and political ritual sanctioned by the Senate to purify the state and humiliate the enemy. The procession stretches for miles, a river of loot and misery flowing through the city. First come the wagons piled high with treasures, gold vases, captured weapons, Statues of foreign gods. Then come the paintings, massive billboards depicting the battles, the sieges, the burning villages of the defeated. The crowd sees the war before they see the warriors. Then come the animals, exotic beasts from the edge of the known world, lions, tigers, elephants, proving that Rome has conquered nature itself. And finally, the prisoners. This is a crescendo. The defeated kings and queens are paraded just before the emperor's chariot. They are the climax of the narrative. Zenobia, the warrior queen who claimed descent from Cleopatra, is now just another trophy. But unlike a captured sword or a golden cup, she has eyes. She looks back at the crowd. This interaction is crucial. Rome wants her to look broken. They want the citizens to see that even the mightiest woman in the East is nothing compared to a Roman citizen. But Zenobia's survival was an anomaly. Most leaders who challenged Rome faced a far grimmer finale. Consider the fate of Vercingetorix, the king of the Gauls. In 46 BCE, decades before Zenobia, he walked this same path. He had united the tribes of Gaul, a feat deemed impossible, and nearly crushed Julius Caesar at Alesia. But he lost. For 6 long years, he sat in a dungeon, waiting for Caesar to find the time to celebrate. 6 years of rotting in darkness, kept alive solely to be a prop for a single afternoon. When he finally emerged into the sunlight for the triumph, he was a ghost of the warrior he had been. He walked the route, endured the jeers, and when the procession reached the foot of Capitoline Hill, he was not granted a villa. He was led aside to the Tullianum, also known as the Mamertine prison. This place is the dark heart of Roman victory. It is not a prison in the modern sense. It is antechamber to the underworld. It is a hole in the ground, a damp, stone dungeon where the enemies of Rome are lowered to die. There, in the suffocating darkness, Vercingetorix was strangled. His body was thrown onto the Gemonian stairs to be abused by the mob before being dragged with hooks into the Tiber River. This was the standard operating procedure. This was what Zenobia expected. This was a haunting shadow that trailed every step she took. The triumph was a binary path. At the end, you either lived as a slave or died as a sacrifice. Jugurtha, the king of Numidia, was thrown into that same pit, left to starve to death, raving about the cold bath of the dungeon. Simon Bar Giora, the Jewish rebel leader, was lashed and executed while the crowds cheered at the Temple of Jupiter. The cheering only stopped when the executioner announced that the enemy leader was dead. Then, the sacrifices to the gods could begin. Death was the punctuation mark of the festivities. Zenobia, however, navigates a different path. Aurelian, the restorer of the world, is a pragmatist. He calculates that a dead queen is a martyr, but a domesticated queen is a trophy that lasts forever. He spares her, but let us not mistake this for mercy. In the Roman worldview, mercy to a barbarian is a sign of weakness. This is a strategic conversion of assets. Zenobia is given a villa in Tiber, near the Emperor's Hadrian's villa. She marries her daughters into Roman nobility. She adopts Roman dress. She hosts salons. To the casual observer, it looks like a happy ending. But look closer. The warrior queen is gone. In her place is a Roman matron, living on a pension provided by the man who destroyed her city. Every time she appears in public, she is a living billboard for Roman supremacy. She is proof that resistance is futile, that eventually everyone becomes Roman. She has been absorbed, digested by the beast she tried to slay. Her identity as a monarch is erased not by the sword, but by the slow erosion of comfort and assimilation. She becomes a curiosity, a dinner guest who tells stories of the old days, a harmless relic. This psychological neutralization is perhaps more complete than execution. She survives, but Zenobia of Palmyra, the fire, the rebellion, the threat, is dead. But 60 CE in Britannia tells us that not all queens can be domesticated. Boudica's story is a counter-narrative to Zenobia's integration. Boudica did not start as a rebel. She, like her husband Prasutagus, tried to play by Roman rules. The Iceni tribe was a client kingdom, an ally. They paid their taxes. They provided auxiliaries. They believed that loyalty bought security. When Prasutagus died, he left a will that he thought was a masterstroke of diplomacy. He left half his kingdom to the Emperor Nero and half to his two daughters. He thought he was buying his family's safety with land. He was wrong. The Roman procurator, Catus Decianus, saw the will not as a legal document but as a confession of weakness. In the eyes of Rome, the death of a client king meant the deal was off. The kingdom didn't pass to the daughters. It reverted to the empire. The Romans didn't just reject the will. They obliterated the Iceni social order. They called in loans that the Iceni didn't know were loans. They confiscated ancestral lands. And when Boudica, the widow and regent, stood up to protest this injustice, Rome decided to make an example of her. This brings us back to that public flogging. The lashing was meant to strip her of her royal aura, to show the tribes that a Briton queen was no better than a common slave. But the violation of her daughters was the true message. It was a biologically focused warfare, an attempt to destroy the bloodline, to ensure no future heirs could claim legitimacy. It was a tactic of absolute despair. Rome, however, miscalculated the chemistry of grief. They expected Boudica to retreat into shame, to hide her disgraced daughters and fade away. They did not understand the culture of the Celts, nor the ferocity of a mother with nothing left to lose. The humiliation did not break her, it distilled her. It burned away any lingering fear or hesitation. Boudica did not go into hiding. She went to war. But this was not a war of conquest. It was a war of extermination. She gathered the tribes, the Iceni, the Trinovants, and others who felt the Roman boot. Her army was a massive, moving city of vengeance, numbering perhaps over 100,000. They did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. When they descended on Camulodunum, the symbol of Roman oppression, they didn't just capture it, they erased it. The temple to the Emperor Claudius, where the veterans huddled for safety, was besieged and burned to the ground. The bronze was melted, the stone shattered. The archaeologists today find a layer of red ash, the Boudican destruction horizon, thick under the modern streets of Colchester. It is the physical scar of her rage. She moved on to Londinium. The Roman governor, Suetonius Paulinus, looked at the situation and made a cold, calculated decision. He realized he could not save the city. He abandoned London to its fate to save the province. The citizens who couldn't flee were massacred. Boudica's forces burned the city so hot that the clay of the buildings turned into red ceramic. Verulamium followed. In a matter of weeks, 3 major Roman cities were ashes, and an estimated 70,000 Romans and collaborators were dead. Tacitus, the Roman historian, writes of the gruesome nature of the killings, gibbets, fire, crucifixion. Boudica was not looking for a triumph. She was looking for a reckoning. She was mirroring the brutality Rome had visited upon her, magnifying it and reflecting it back. For a brief, terrifying moment, it looked like Rome would be pushed into the sea. The Emperor Nero allegedly considered abandoning Britain entirely. A single humiliated woman had brought the empire to its knees. The end, when it came, was tragic and inevitable. The Battle of Watling Street pitted Roman discipline against Briton fury. The Romans, outnumbered perhaps 10-1, chose a narrow gorge where numbers meant nothing. They formed a wall of shields and spears, a meat grinder that the Britons threw themselves against. Boudica watched as her rebellion was systematically butchered. The discipline of the legions, the very thing she hated, was the thing that destroyed her. History becomes hazy on her final moments. Did she take poison to avoid capture? Did she die of illness? We do not know. Her body was never found. No triumph was held for her. No golden chains were forged. She simply vanished into the mist of history, leaving behind a scarred province and a terrified empire. But in her failure, she achieved something Zenobia did not. She remained untamed. She died as a queen, not a subject. Her daughters, the catalyst for this inferno, also vanished from the record, their fates swallowed by the silence that follows catastrophe. The contrast between these two women reveals the duality of Roman power. Rome offered 2 choices to the defeated: submission or annihilation. Zenobia chose survival. She accepted the golden chains, walked to triumph, and allowed herself to be digested by the system. She became a cautionary tale of how the mighty fall and are repurposed. Boudica chose annihilation. She rejected the script Rome had written for her. Instead of a triumph, she gave them a massacre. Instead of a villa, she accepted a grave. Both women were victims of a system that viewed them as obstacles to be removed or resources to be exploited. But their legacies diverge. Zenobia is the tragic figure of lost glory, the romantic orientation of the East. Boudica is the avatar of vengeance, the reminder that if you push a people too far, the backlash will be uncontrollable. The machinery of the Roman state, with its legions, its laws, and its triumphs, was designed to process the world into a shape that fit Rome. It was a grinder. The Mamertine prison stands today as a testament to that grinder. If you visit Rome, you can walk down the steps to the Tullianum. The air is still cold. The stone is still damp. It is a small space, claustrophobic and heavy with the memory of death. It is hard to imagine the kings and generals who spent their final terrifying hours there, listening to the muffled sounds of the triumph above, knowing that the cheers were for their destruction. This was the engine room of the empire's ego. It was here that the facade of civilization cracked, revealing the raw violence underneath. The triumphs were the bright, loud lies Rome told itself. The prison was a quiet, dark truth. History is often written by the victors, and the Romans were prolific writers. They controlled the narrative. They described Zenobia as beautiful and noble, but ultimately a woman who needed a man, an emperor, to put her in her place. They described Boudica as a savage, a monster, a violation of the natural order because she dared to act like a man, leading armies and demanding justice. But reading between the lines of Tacitus and Cassius Dio, we see the cracks in their confidence. We see the fear these women inspired. We see the immense effort Rome had to expend to crush them. The empire was not a monolith. It was a constant, desperate struggle to maintain control over people who yearned to be free. The golden chains of Zenobia are long lost, likely melted down to pay for another legion or another feast. The bones of the Iceni warriors have returned to the British soil, but the lesson remains. It is a lesson about the fragility of power and the endurance of memory. Rome believed it could break Britain and the East by breaking their queens. They believed that humiliation was a tool as precise as a gladius. They were half right. Humiliation can break a person, or can forge them into something harder, something sharper, something that cannot be controlled. Whether one ends up in a villa in Tiber or a nameless grave in East Anglia, the message echoes through the ages. The triumph is fleeting. The silence of the Mamertine is eternal. And somewhere in the dark, the eyes of the defeated are still watching, waiting for the empire to fall. If you listen closely to the history of the ancient world, you don't just hear the trumpets of victory. You hear the rattling of chains, the crack of the whip, and the whispers of those who were promised justice and given only death. This is the grim reality of the glory of Rome. It is built on the broken bodies of those who dare to stand in the open. And for those of us looking back, it is a stark reminder that civilization is often just a thin veneer over the most primal brutality. The past is not dead. It is just waiting to be retold.